It's time to get rolling again. And each day at this time, we have a panel discussion. And today's panel discussion is going to be related to development, which will be what Anton will be talking about today. And we'll also, at moments, bring in some of the prior 2 days in our discussion. So our first question that we're going to address as a panel, and by the way, anyone here with us can feel free to type in a question, a comment, and we will address those questions as part of the panel discussion as well. So one of the things is, how do we transition from onboarding to part of the team? So we're going to start with that question. Anton, V, who's got the real drive on that one?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at what are we doing when we're onboarding. When we're onboarding, there is direct oversight. There is, there's somebody always looking at the new hire. There's always somebody paying attention to the new hire. But oftentimes in organization, how it feels like onboarding stops, and all of a sudden there's somebody came with a pair of scissors and cut this cord that kept the employee connected to development, connected to those other things, and they're just cut the cord and release them into the wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's certain organizations will not have the ability to constantly give a ton of development and things like that. There should always be a fraction, but ease people out, right? If you went from always reporting, always being developed, always having meetings, to now all of a sudden you're having one a month meeting, that's not a good way to go. It's going to seem like they don't care. So I think that in order to show that care that you've developed in onboarding, you need to continue to do those good meetings. And that's where one-on-ones come in. V has done a great job talking about one-on-ones. I'm going to mention one-on-ones. But that has to be one of the best transition points, is to start those one-on-ones, be it with a leader directly, which of course I'm going to prefer, or with a mentor that leader has developed to be their future replacement, which we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, I'm with Anton. I was about to say again, ensuring continuous communication, like I've discussed today and yesterday. As you said, Anton, it's key that whatever you have built during onboarding, you just don't drop the ball and forget about your employee, and now that they are officially ready to do their job the best way they have been trained and coached and mentored. So it's really important that you continue that communication on a regular basis, that you keep on checking, and that you also set the right expectations. This should have actually been already done ideally as part of the hiring. When the contract was about to get signed, some expectations should have been set, that saying that you're going to meet with your manager on a regular basis, etc. And then with the onboarding, the leader should already tell his or her new team members, okay, we are going to meet every week for one-on-one, and we're going to have team meetings, and we're going to have this, we're going to have that, etc. So that then again, the new team members know when he or she can ask questions, or whether he or she faces challenges, how he can best approach his manager or leader. So communication is definitely key again.
Yeah, especially with a larger organization where you have a separate onboarding team, separate from the actual team that the employee will be joining, is don't assume that the other onboarding team got it, or their new team has got it. Communicate about it. Stay in touch. Have routine check-ins to really make sure that we don't assume that the other person's got a handle on it, that it's actually the person's being taken care of. And sometimes that transition may not be a one event. It may be a process more than an event. And so again, just being intentional to make sure the transition occurs and occurs well is real key there.
And Kevin, you're the master of learning design. I know you won't say you're the master, but compared to me, you're a master. Kevin spent a lot of time in the education world that understands how to create training that follows learning design. But really in onboarding, what are these people getting? We got to think about, we talked about taxonomy of learning and how there's different levels of learning that occur. In onboarding, these people are really getting maybe to comprehension. Maybe, right? That's a big, with a big M in there. But then as you get them out of onboarding, now you need to transition, ensuring the comprehension's there. And now you got to start to have them analyze, evaluate, and synthesize new things in order to continue their development. Because you don't want an employee just to understand and remember things. You want them to face a situation, feel empowered and prepared to know how relevant information from other situations can be applied in that situation, even though they've never faced them. And that's what that kind of development creates for them. And that's how you create good employees.
Well, and our model, if people haven't picked up on the pattern, is that you start with awareness, then you educate, then you teach application. And the onboarding process is more on the awareness side, but any leader at any moment should be prepared to delve into whatever. And especially if the onboarding process is longer for the person, then the depth that you'll go from a learning standpoint is going to increase, because if you keep somebody at the awareness level for extended periods of time, people are going to lose interest. They're going to become discouraged. So it's all part of what has to be considered in that transition process. How long will we have people during an onboarding? Therefore, how deep can we even have the time to go?
Yeah,
go ahead, V.
If I may jump in, Kevin, yes, I agree. I think one of the key things to do in onboarding that you can bring as well to the development side is, especially when you have lots of information to give to your new hires, is not to teach them or train them everything, but it's really to train them where to find the information. That's number one. So when you show people the tools that they need to use, the keywords or the search that they can do, by explaining them that should already give them the confidence that they can all pretty much handle everything. That's number one. And number two, again, to make it a bit easier as well, because as I said yesterday, it can be overwhelming with all the information you're getting in a short period of time, is also to focus on, again, that's the Pareto rule. What are your 20%? What are your most frequently asked questions or issues that you're faced that can solve 80% of the problems that your team members or your customers may face? And by putting that as well into perspective, by telling people this is how you find the information, this is, I think, how you help them transitioning, building their confidence so that then after they can handle the workload they're getting.
Another thing I would add just to the audience, it's something that's helped me a lot. Oftentimes we think that transition from one cycle to the other is an on and off switch. Okay, they finished onboarding, flipped the switch, now they're going into development phase. It's not, it's a sliding scale. It's like you're slowly lowering the volume as they're going and you're letting go of the reins, right? When they're onboarding, they're really tight, you're holding them close, they're right under your wing, they're feeling supported. And as the time comes from them entering the building to them being a rock star, that volume goes lower and lower and lower. Volume of accountability, volume of how much oversight they're having, because at some people want autonomy. People want to be able to shine with their skills and do things their way. So you do need to get to that point, but it's not definitely something you flip and then all of a sudden you're there.
It's an organizational shift in group dynamic. As a leader, you have to work with group dynamic. Well, organizationally, have the same process, so that you start with a new person and your leadership role is that of a commander, and that is to really help them get comfortable, direct them clearly, and then start working, as V talked about, transitioning and begin to apply the concept of empowerment. Make them feel secure, but don't make them feel like that we don't trust them. So real important to keep that process in mind. Like you said, Anton, not a switch. Definitely
Jimmy got a good point. It says,
Yeah.
it continues even till exit interview. Like Anton added, volume is adjusted and then when required, because it could go back up too, right? You realize that you've let the volume down too soon and something happened and that employee showed signs that they need more attention.
Yep.
They need more. It's not something that is constant. Remember, I said as a leader, you need to be a thermostat, not a thermometer. You need to sense that the temperature is going down or the volume is going down too much, and you need to adjust before it gets too low.
Or if you are introducing a new product or new service that is new for everybody, you need to turn up again.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's
and
how people need to think, right? Every time something shifts, I need to assess my people from inclusion and diversity side. I need to assess them from the stress load that they're having. I need to assess them from a leadership standpoint and see where do I need to turn this maxed out, or where maybe just it needs to be a little bit turned down, or where does it stay the same? And it's not a formula, as Kevin will tell you many times, because each company, each team is so unique and so diverse that it's like a complex ecosystem that we can't say from an outside standpoint 2 + 2 = 4. It's just not like that.
and that's why it's dangerous to look for help in plug and play approaches. Software, even software plug and play is only good to a point. You still got to learn how to operate within the environment and things like that. It may plug and play with the computer, but the human has to be able to interact. And same way with the whole employment cycle is that it's not the 5 easy steps or the 7 habits or the formula. That's part of what causes us to lose human sustainability when we start plugging people into formulas. And because we don't fit formulas, we don't behave mathematically. It's just not the way we're made up.
Those darn emotions get in the way. Just human beings have this thing called emotions, and we're just not robots. It sucks for management.
and we have, as Jenny helps us remember, we're diverse. We have some common ground. We have some commonality, but each of us is very different. And the formulas don't allow for that many variables, let's say. Not any of the formulas that most of us could work. I suppose we could get a bunch of them. Okay. I was looking at a comment. AI and technology trends can only assist to an extent. It's the human element. Very good, Jimmy. That's one of the things that we talk about regularly is, the technology's great. It's got value, but at the end of the day, there is not going to be any environment where a company can work solely robotically. It just will not happen. And that's why a little different thing to think about is people say, well, how do I prepare for the advent of AI? Well, the best thing you can do is to be the best in your humanness that you can be and develop those skill sets that cannot be programmed or robotically replicated. So, okay, so moving along. So how do you assess the need for personal and professional development? We're talking about transitioning from onboarding to get going with professional and personal development. How do we do that?
So I would say, again, it's thanks to, first of all, the one-on-ones that the leader has with their employees. They will know what is their personal goals, where do they want to be in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. As I mentioned earlier on as well, is trying to align as well with the needs of the business. What will I need versus what do my employees want? That's one. And also, I think it's in ensuring as well, and it's probably done more at a team meeting level or in whatever communication a company does, whether it's via newsletter, intranet, team meetings, whatever. But it's also keeping the employees regularly informed of what's happening, what are the upcoming changes, what are the trends that are being seen, what are the things that are being worked on. So that then again, employees know what's going on and they can show interest and tell their managers the next time they're going to have a one-on-one, hey, I've heard this, I would be interested in working on that if I have the possibility, or do you think I would be a good person to work on that? So that is where the exchanges are happening, in my opinion. So again, it's back to communication, but also in one-on-ones and regular meetings. That is, to me, again, the critical part here. What do you think, Anton?
Know your people. I mean, honestly, just know your people. I won't brag, but I'll brag a little bit. I had a team of 43, right? And that's my biggest team I ever had that was directly under me as a manager. I had assistant managers to help out. And at any point, I could tell you what events they had going on personally, like if their kids had soccer games coming up. But at the same time, it wasn't just personal. I also could tell you within $500 of where they were within their goals. Just so I knew very early, if there's something that's consistently missing, I need to intervene early, get them the development, the training that they need before the end of the, cycle comes around. And now I'm coming down and yelling at them or, reprimanding them because they missed something, right? You have to be really proactive, and you have to know your people to identify these things early on, even sometimes before they identify them. We hire coaches because we get that external perspective. Well, as leaders, we need to be those coaches for our people. We need to help them to see some things around the corners that they may be blinded to because they're too much in the middle of it, right? But the other thing is understanding them, not just from life and professional standpoint, but also their health, something that their mental state, right? That's something that people need to understand. And what I mean by that, when it comes down to development, if your person's not in a good mental state in that moment, development can wait. I'm just telling you, there's
Yeah.
just nothing that's going to work. Adding more to these people's plates when they're already burnt out and overwhelmed is not going to help. It's going to make you feel good as a leader because you checked some box and said, hey, I delivered that training. It went in one ear, out the other, because they're in the middle of tunnel vision. They're in the middle of surviving. They're not in this thrive, relaxed, learn mode. So you need to intervene and help them to get there first before you start to, develop them further. So just know your people is my answer.
Yeah, practical tip. In the military, we use a tool called the battle book. And if you're in charge of a unit, small unit, part of your battle book is notes you keep on your team members. And so as a leader, you should have digital files that you keep on your people. If you use a email client such as Outlook or one of those, set up a folder on each of your team members and keep communication in there. Keep notes so that you know what's going on with them, not because you're trying to be micromanaged or you're trying to be nosy, but if you don't know your people, how can you lead them into the direction they need to go, especially with personal and professional development? And whatever tools you can use will help with that.
Yeah.
And Kimberly makes a comment. She says that, yes, Anton, it is truly as easy to invest and know your team. Concerns me greatly when a leader does not know anything about their team except they're in X role.
Yeah, great. And Jimmy as well made a comment before that constant and continuous feedback should be entertained both ways, upward and downwards, moving away from traditional performance evaluation and
oh God, we just stepped on a landmine.
Yeah, you don't have to convince us about not doing performance evals.
Guys, there's very little correlation that shows positive performance improvement from traditional performance management. This stuff has been studied, and empirically speaking, it does not improve performance. There's actually oftentimes declines immediately after performance evals because they feel so beaten down and demoralized, they don't feel empowered. Traditional performance management needs to be thrown out. If your company's still using it, hire us, we'll help you.
Well, I'll even tell a personal story. An organization that I worked with, we did a weekly checkup on how we did for the week. We actually showed if we made or lost money for the company. I was in the service field, so we were evaluating, and 95% of the time, on a weekly basis, I was being a positive input for the company. But invariably, when I got my performance evaluation, and whether it was good or bad, and fortunately, it was generally good. But the week after that, without fail, my production level would show up negative. And I don't know, never looked at it to see if it was a direct correlation or causal effect, but it certainly was predictable. So yeah, performance eval in the traditional sense is just not effective because as you said, Anton, by the time we get to an annual or even a biannual evaluation, we've missed the window and correction is gone. And so it just becomes out of context.
The same reason we can't use waterfall project management ways anymore, really. We can't use traditional performance management. The world's too complex. We must be faster. We must be more agile. So agile performance management is the way to go because of communication that it brings, right? The communications become so key in such a busy world with such low attention span. That's what we need to remember. The human being's attention span is what, 8 seconds now? I think is what the latest thing that I looked up, slower, less than a goldfish or something ridiculous like that, right? We got to understand as leaders that that's the situation. So it's going to take many touches to create change, many soft, light touches instead of one big hammer. Like it's just not going to work like that.
Yeah.
Well,
We
it makes
have
those of us like Anton, you and I that are tend towards the oh shiny thing approach makes us not look quite as odd as we used to. You know, there a lot of people's attention spans are challenged. V, you had something?
Yeah, I was about to say, Josun made a comment as well. She wrote, if employees are blind about the real needs, they as working team are supposed to be able to respond accurately and promptly enough. The employer is wasting the potential of response existing within the team, seen as a human performance engine. Yeah.
It's on the leader. It's 100% on the leader, right? And if leaders blame their team for that, you're in the wrong position. Like you need to figure out, you need to shift things, move things, massage things, polish things until the things get to the point where your team is performing at their human potential. And that's what this is all about.
If there's a problem on your team, I tell leaders the first stop, I don't care what is going on, your first stop's at the mirror. What have I done or not done that has affected my team? Because if you're leading effectively, you are the one that makes the team. And so just take that responsibility. The sooner you do it, the more likely you're to overcome the challenges and help your team grow. So we've talked about assessing for personal and professional development. Let's isolate a little bit and talk about determining a personal development plan. I think a lot of us are accustomed to professional development plan. How do we do a personal development plan as part of the business environment?
So this is going to cover a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about later, because you need to create bridges between personal plans and professional plans and connect them. Create those what's in it for them situations where they see that by improving this personally, I get better professionally, or vice versa, right? So they should be intervened and they all should be connected to their vision. So before you worry about all those other things, you need to make sure that you've helped build the vision for this employee, because oftentimes, once again, it's another thing I'll talk about it. Corporations have, if we build it, they will come mindset with training. They think that as long as they build this great training, then it's going to create the result that it does. And then oftentimes it creates very marginal, small results. Why? Because the what's in it for them factor is missing, because these people don't see how it ties into their personal need, their personal desires, right? So I would say first things first is irrelevant whether it's professional or personal, make sure you know the vision, because then you can use that what's in it for them factor to motivate them to do everything else along the path.
Yeah, no, great point. I agree, Anton. What I would say, and that's a question I asked some of my team members in my last job, is telling them, because sometimes they just don't know really what they want to do. And as you say, they don't have this personal vision. I was asking them, well, imagine you're 80 and you're looking back at your life. Just what would you like to have achieved? What would you like to be proud of? And work backwards from that. Okay, if at 80 I want to have been, I don't know, a director, a VP, a CEO, or whatever, or I want to have traveled the world, or whatever, what do you need to do now, in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years, so that I can say at when I'm 80, yes, I have achieved what I want? And it's an answer usually people cannot give straight away. It takes time. Sometimes it takes days, weeks, or even months to answer that question. But at least it's exactly to your point, Anton. It forces them to really think, okay, what are the skills I need to have? What do I need to learn? And how does that fit in my current job? And how can I bring value to my current company or my team so that it's a win-win situation for and my team or my manager and myself? So that's also what I would say.
I just want to add real quick, like it just made me think before I forget. I once took over a team that not a single person in the entire market, and we're talking about 4 different teams in that market, wanted to move up. And I'm going to connect this. Meaning move up in leadership, it's been so bad. And I realized that if people don't want to move up in life, there's going to be really hard time leading them. But it doesn't mean just in leadership. They need to have to want to move up in life. And if they don't, you as a leader need to find a way to inspire them, empower them, teach them, educate them to get them there. Because I'm telling you, if you don't have that with your people, it's like pulling everything really, really hard. Everything's work, everything's hard, everything requires your involvement. But if you get these people feeling like they want to move up in life, like V's talking about that plan, which we'll talk about life plan later, it's going to be so much easier to get them to do anything. So find a way to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more that we look at our employees in life, not just business, okay, that we don't try to separate the two, the more likely we're to get them engaged. And on a personal development, part of that is helping them with a connection to how that will help them in their work world and home world, and look at it in that way. And to your point about not having, most people don't even have a vision, and to say that they have a life plan of some kind is a big leap. So what we have to do sometimes is get them to consider a next step. What would you like to try? And there's a risk there that it could be a problem, that it would not go quite as well as we think, but that's a risk that we need to take in order to engage the folks that we working with. And I noticed that Joseon has made a couple of comments. Of course, one that her first part of her comment says we need to distinguish clearly between boss, manager, and leader, which Joseon, one of our mantras as a team is manage things and lead people. So we agree 100%. And you can't be one or the other to be most effective. You have to be both.
It's unsustainable to not be one or the other, right? The only way to be sustainable is you have to be both a manager or a leader. Otherwise, there's going to be inefficiencies or problems created that will create, unsustainable environments.
Yeah. And Joseon also comments, you can buy people to obey to you, but you cannot hire people to trust you unless you're naturally taking them to feel like they can trust you, which is so true. Trust is earned, and no way to cheat feelings or intuitions, and acknowledging those as part of knowing your team members is so critical. And she says, I can silence my word, but nobody can keep me away from knowing how it sounds like. Rather than, again, this goes back to our earlier part of the conference, the summit. Quit making people fit in our boxes. Find where they are, who they are, and figure out ways to help them fit in organically into teams and into the organization as a whole. And one of the best ways there is, remember, we as organizations, we function more like bodies than we do like machines. And when we think in those terms, it's real different.
I like her mentioning of buying, right? You can't buy top level performance. No. That's just the truth. You guys need to understand. There's no money, I'm telling you, no money that you can spend to consistently buy top level performance from an employee, because it requires the human element, and money doesn't have the human element in it. And it requires intrinsic motivation. We're going to talk about fostering entrepreneurial spirit. You cannot buy entrepreneurial spirit within an organization. Just can't do it.
Okay. Another question that we should address as a panel is, how do you bridge the development gap? One of the challenges that we're facing currently is 4 to 5 generations in the workforce, depending on the sociologic opinions that you look at, but a lot of diversity in just generational. How do we bridge that?
Know your people and customize your approach, right? I mean, that's kind of the message across the board that we've been sending this week. Understand their needs, and not from an average standpoint, right? And we're going to talk about difference between military development and business development a little bit later, but military drives people to averages. Businesses tend to fall that way, but they shouldn't, because it's ineffective. We need to understand, what are these people's strengths? What are these people's weaknesses? But also layer those against their potential. Because if somebody's weakness is, pretty bad, but their potential in that is still pretty bad, is that something that you should really be spending a ton of time on? Or is that something that somebody else can do and you focus on a development areas that they're strong in, right? So pay attention to those things, see what kind of things can, with time invested, because we know that development requires resources, be it time, be it, money, whatever it may be. Make sure that that time gets the most for its investment. And that's by working within people's strengths and knowing those people.
Yeah. Now you summarized it. I was also about to say, know your audience. And like I said in the presentation in the beginning, know your audience, know their situation, know their needs, what they like, what they want to do. Don't assume that because someone is the same age as you, that how he or she is thinking. Just really ask questions, ask for feedback, and give them time as well to provide feedback. As I say, some people will be quick in responding, while some others may need more time. Again, we should never assume because someone is older that he or she will have all the answers straight away. So know your people and give them time. Yes, absolutely.
I don't think we've had one question today that didn't have one-on-one as part of the answer, right?
Mhm.
Like where that one-on-one meeting between the leader and the team member wasn't part of the solution. And I don't think we're going to come across it with anything to do with onboarding and development or anything of that nature. One-on-ones are just so key. And if you're not doing them regularly and consistently, you're not going to have this.
Yeah. Well,
Jeremy is making comment. Teamwork and team collaboration is key. Play off of each other's weaknesses. Yeah.
Yeah, the complementary relationship of strengths and weaknesses is such a value. And in fact, it's a value also in the whole development piece, because you can use someone's strengths to help develop the weakness of others. Again, if it's priority, it's part of this consideration is, do we develop weaknesses or do we develop strengths? It's all part of a determination as a leader. And in terms of the bridging the gap, we see right now in front of us the best example of how not to do it, and that is mass production style education and how it's not working. So setting up and saying, okay, well, we're all going to do this as our development plan. There are moments, of course, that you learn things as a team, but to make everything about doing everything the same way, the same time as a team is replicating a broken system that's already in place.
You're hitting on our a la carte approach. And I just want to mention that because, right, it's the customization piece. It's, imagine we're doing a development and helping your people to handle stress better, as an example, right? We're coming in as a company and we're working with HR and helping the team members to manage stress better. Some people may have really bad stress problems because of their relationships. Some people may have really bad stress problems because of their health. Some people may have really bad stress because of their work environments, right? And the relationships they have there. What does a typical training do right now? It's this high blanket that comes in and covers everything in kind of high level detail, because there's not enough time. A company can't give up that much time to say everything's going to be covered in detail. But what should be done instead? Instead, whether it be stress, whether it be professional development, personal development, you create this big thing, but then you do a needs assessment, right? A true needs assessment, and you see what are they scoring in. So instead of having them going through everything, let's have them go through the things that they maybe need to be in for their strengths and their high potential and the stuff that interests them, and let the other stuff go aside because somebody else may need that. And instead of having, like you said, this one big blanket course that covers just the high level stuff, give people customized things that they can go really, really deep into and really master.
Yeah.
And that kind of transitions nicely into another question, and that is effective online learning. One of the tools we have available so that not everybody has to be doing the same thing all at the same time is online learning, but how do we design that effectively?
V, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so again, I would say you have to be mindful of how your people learn. And as we know, there are different types of learners. There are the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic, I think it's called in English.
Kinesthetic, tactile.
Thank you. Yeah, so you need to have that included in whatever online learning program that you do. That is number one. The number two is you also need to, again, find a balance. You shouldn't bring like 8 hours of online learning to someone in one go, because the person will not have enough space in his or her head to absorb the knowledge. So you should really give that bit by bit, and then give them time to practice in between, whether it is with a colleague with shadowing, or whether like doing some small task first, so that again, whatever the person has learned, he or she can put in practice and then go to the next step. So that's what I would say. Online learning is great. It allows you to provide learning opportunities to people that are not maybe in the same room or cannot travel, or like we are, as I say, we are facing now. So that's a great tool, but again, find the right balance. I don't think that because now everybody is stuck at home, that you only need to do this online learning, push, 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 and nothing else. No, you still need the communication, you still need the one-on-one, you still need the practice in between, you still need to give them the opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback in between.
Here's the thing about online learning. It creates a solution, or it makes one thing easy and it makes the other thing much harder. The first thing that it makes easy is how easy it is to deliver information. It becomes very simple, very replicable, very little time is committed to it. But what's being taken away is how hard, what's becoming harder is how hard it is to understand that information, and how hard it is to apply that information, resonate it, retain it. All those things become a challenge. So in order for online learning to be effective, the learning design, which we talked about, has to become a bigger thing. People need to pay attention to it even more closely than they were in person, because the dynamic has shifted. It's way easier to be distracted. It's way easier to, make it look like I'm learning, but I'm looking at the screen if you're training me something, but I'm doing something different, right? Because I'm just distracted. So it has to be entertaining enough, interesting enough, resonate enough to keep my attention there, especially, with all of our 8-second attention span. So that's one learning design. The other thing is application of learning theories, right? Making sure that both the way it is designed, but also the way that it's taught, and then the way that it's applied, like adult learning theory, or goal setting theory, all those things need to be there, because it's way more important that you can't get away with, online as you could in person. But V hit it hard, right? Communication, make sure that it's not online. Like online virtual learning doesn't mean that it's just them sitting, clicking buttons, nobody talking to them. Make sure that there's some breakout sessions, make sure that there's some, maybe one-on-ones, if possible, mentoring opportunities, group discussions, right? Design it in a way that replicates what would happen in face-to-face. In face-to-face, we don't just sit there and listen to somebody lecture the whole time. Even here, even though we're kind of technically the subject matter experts, whatever, we want your engagement, because you're going to learn better, you're going to be more impactful, and you're going to be more evangelical with human SOS. But if we just talk to you the whole time, it's not conducive of learning. So just those are the things that people need to pay attention to.
Yeah, Jimmy makes a comment, more interactive sessions, like Anton added, entertaining and interactive too, customization is key. Okay, I got to throw in, I'm a train the trainer, I've trained teachers. Okay, whether it's online, whether it's in person, the concept is that we have different dominant learning styles. And any effective learning uses what we call blended strategy. That means that in any learning session, you need to hit all learning styles, because you're going to have a mixture of people. So, for example, if you're going to help someone get better at Excel spreadsheets, okay, one element that would be helpful to one group is to have the how-to step-by-step list, boom, 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 and walk through and your command list and function list, and produce it that way and have it available so they can look at and read it. Okay? Another group that you're going to appeal to is you're going to have someone doing a video showing in action how to put a function in a cell, how to copy and paste or show a range or whatever, and talking it through as they go. And then another form of the same thing is you have a live person that has an Excel spreadsheet that is shared with the entire group. And as you walk through, you demonstrate how to put that function in a cell. And then you let each person put a function in a cell as you observe them in feedback. So in online learning, it's a little more challenging, especially for the tactile or kinesthetic learner, but it can be done if it is done intentionally and with learning concepts in mind and learning styles considered.
Just soon mentioned gamification. It's such a great thing. That's why you're seeing like a lot of websites, a lot of online learning facilitators have created gamification in many different ways. People will do a lot for a badge. I'm telling you, like people, I know two things. People will do a lot for a free t-shirt and they will do a lot for a badge on their anything. Like, and if you can find ways to incorporate that in, like even create prizes, small little fun things, like, and just make it interesting, make it fun, give away t-shirts, give away prizes, give people badges, top learner, give people levels to progress through with an organization, or better yet, tie their pay into their development, into how well they're, how many levels of courses they've attained and stuff like that. Something small, but some people care about that too. So give them reward for the work that they've put in, and then see how much more developed your people become, and you're going to get that money back tenfold.
I just want to come back to one point you made, Anton. You say it's easy to deliver online training or from the receiver end. Yes, but from the creation, and it takes a lot of time if you want to do a great job, because you need to take all these elements into consideration, as Kevin said, making sure there is a bit for every type of learner, and also make it interactive and making entertaining, and maybe.
I said it's easy to deliver online training, not easy to deliver good online training.
Exactly.
It's very easy to hit send button and send something in the cloud, and it's now a training.
Exactly.
You see a lot of that kind of stuff on social media right now, all these great trainings.
Well, it's funny you're talking about the motivation to learn, Anton. One of the funniest things I ever encountered, I worked with a team, an industry team, and we were working on, back as LEED was being introduced into the construction world, LEED. And so we were working on this committee. And
tell us what it means, Kev.
It is, oh my gosh, what does the
acronym? You don't have to say the acronym. What does it represent?
The short version is how to make buildings more environmentally sustainable and how to make them more environmentally friendly. And it became a big thing. We were going to have all these green jobs, which is really interesting in itself. Another day discussion for that. But my part of this was to bring an introductory level environmental sustainability component that we're talking very basic. And one of the members of this team was either a master's or a PhD level in environmental sustainability in construction. But as soon as she found out that I could offer to let her take an assessment and get a certificate on it, even though what this certificate was for was so basic, it's not, but she wanted, one of the first questions is, when can I get the certificate? And we are funny as people, how we're motivated with things like that. And so be sure that we tap into that as a leader to bring that appeal, that motivation.
Know your people. Again, here it is. It's a recurring thing, right? And one thing I would say, you just made me think about it, but for a long time I led from the Strength Finder. I don't know if you guys are familiar. I know you two are, but Gallup Strength Finder that has like 39 different strengths. You have your top 5. And I would have all my direct reports top 5 on my board. So that way I knew when I wanted to motivate them, I could easily look on that board and see what are the important things for them, right? If they're a learner, great. They're going to want the delivery itself. They want as much information, as deep of information. The motivation to them is in the learning itself. The better the quality of learning, the more motivated they are. But if they're an achiever, they need that badge and they need that certificate. They need to have something in their hands that says, hey, you've climbed the ladder, you've achieved the next level, right? So understanding not just from big umbrella of human motivation, but individualized to each person and their cares and their strengths, and coming back to that with them factor, what's in it for them.
And we want to make those sometimes more difficult than they have to be. Sometimes the motivator is simply, hey, you did great.
Exactly.
Or a favorite piece of candy. You would be amazed how motivating a piece of chocolate can be to some people. And so
because the thing is, it's recognition, right? It's ultimately
sure.
what it is. It's not the thing that they got, it's the feeling that they got from getting that thing that drives them.
Yeah, Jeremy made another great comment about augmented reality as well, that would assist in the interactive learning process. So yeah, great point.
Jeremy, your head is right in the right space, right? You're thinking about it. How do I recreate as much of the real thing as possible? How do I help those kinesthetic learners to get hands-on, that tactile thing that Kevin was talking about? Yeah, spot on, man.
Yeah, augmented reality, very interesting. I've got a friend that's into it, and he showed me some things, and it's just very remarkable.
In the safety world, this is big. Like I was learning about it in a class last semester, and they were just talking about how it's helping in the safety world to recreate some problems that can't be recreated in real life, otherwise it would cause serious dangers, but allow people to, do that, because that's really cool. A lot of times in trainings, we can't recreate the stress of the environment that people are going to be under. And sometimes, honestly, in the military, that is done a lot. Intentional stress is imposed on people to put their mind into that situation. So you need to consider, maybe if they're faced with that kind of task at work, in training, I need to simulate that somehow to prepare them, right?
That's why you see pilots and aviation training now. Simulators are very remarkable, to the point that these flight simulators, they move and they shake and give you the whole feeling. So yeah, more of that you can introduce, the more effective the learning is going to be.
Yeah.
And so we've kind of already hit about how to get our team excited about development. One last question before we wrap up our panel discussion is, how does development play into retention?
I would say it plays a big role, because obviously if an employee knows that he can become something else in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, when he knows he has the support of his or manager or leader, that he is being mentored and coached, etc., then of course you will want to wait, because you know that, okay, I have people who care about me, you have people who want me to succeed, who want me to achieve that position or take over this responsibility. And that is a great way. To me, this is one of the best way to retain people. But again, you need to ensure you communicate about it. If the leader has the plan in his head or your head and never communicates that to the employee, they will never know and they may leave. But again, by really working together, that making sure again that it's a two-way communication, and that there is a plan, and that everybody agrees on the different steps, and that there is this vision, then I don't know anyone who would say, well, no, I'm just going to stop and I'm going to leave because I'm not happy. It's as simple as that, at least to me.
Yeah, I mean, we've made retention of people more complex than it needs to be, because I think we're trying to find a formula that doesn't exist. I would look at it as principles, like you taught me, Kevin, and I look at it as this way: show people where they're going to be in the future and give them hope that they can get there, then develop them in the way that shows them that where they are right now is the best place for their future to be. Right. And it takes both of those things, having that future vision and in creating an environment that's not just development, because the care factor and other things we've been talking about have to be there, but where they know that this is the best place for me to be. And I'm telling you guys, I am telling you this with full-hearted, passion, is that that is more important than the money that they get paid. I'm not saying money is not important. Money has to be taken off the table. I've said that before, and I'll say it again, to a point where their basic necessities are met. Their pay is slightly above average compared to their peers within similar industries and stuff like that. but it shouldn't be the thing that you think is motivating your people to stay. It's not. Somebody will always dangle a bigger carrot in front of them. But if that motivation comes intrinsically, it comes internally to where they feel connected, where their future and their current position is aligned to that future, they'll say no to a bigger salary because they know that the bigger thing is coming. So I would say those factors are the most important.
If I may, I would like to disagree a bit with what you said,
Sure, that's
Anton,
fine.
about, you say, the best place to be is where we are now, or where the employee is now, to get to where he wants to be. Yes, but sometimes, and you as a leader need to work with your employee on that, is that maybe you don't have that middle step for that employee so that he can get to the next level. And that is your job as the leader to find out, or to help the person to find another opportunity, maybe in another team, or maybe a slightly different role, so that then after the person can jump better to become, to achieve
What
that
are you
long-term goal.
disagreeing with? I guess I'm not, because I'm agreeing with everything you're saying.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood it. No, because from
what I mean, I said it very generally, like best place for them to be, right? So imagine I sit down with you as a leader and I say, I know that there's about 5 out of 10 things that you need to develop for your personal stuff that we can't achieve right now, but let's work on this one. As soon as we build this, I'm going to show you the route where those other ones are going to be built, whether it's be here with me or it's going to be somewhere else in the company. But I'm saying is in the moment while we're here, let's make them feel that that's the best place for them to be while having the vision for the future.
Okay, so we are in agreement.
Yeah, we're totally the same. You know me, I don't explain stuff well. It's on me. It's not on you.
No, maybe it's me as well who misunderstood. So thanks for the clarification.
It's funny, as a team, we think we disagree sometimes, and it's just our different view of the something. When we agree, we may say it differently or whatever, but the principle is there.
But that's why communication is so key, right? And that's
Right.
why, like, I love when people disagree. Like when these guys disagree with me, like I get goosebumps. I want a team that disagrees with me all the time, because if I surround myself with people that agree, we're just got one brain. It's one brain that's working the whole time instead of using all these other beautiful brains. So no, I love disagreement.
The Josoon brings up a point, and I'll try not to get on my soapbox. You all know what I'm talking about. Academic learning is a very modern thing that is at the same time getting obsolete. Josoon, you're preaching to the choir with me. Our education system, academic education, is not only becoming, in my opinion, it's already obsolete, and it needs to include all of the different elements that you mentioned in there as part of the learning tools. And so get complete agreement, I believe, from our whole team on that one.
Makes me think of the term edutainment, right?
Yeah.
We're heading in the world of edutainment, where people have to, in order to maintain attention long enough to teach a human being something, whether they want to learn it or not, we have to keep them entertained. So edutainment is the future of education.
Well, and we were talking about development and retention. I think it's Richard Branson is the one that says, that throws out the question, what if I invest all this in my employee and they leave? And he says, well, what if you don't invest all of this and they stay?
Stealing my thunder, man. Coming up on the next 2 slides, but true.
Okay.
No, but so true.
So that kind of wraps up our panel for the moment, and we will go into another break at